Thanks for joining me. This is our second segment, It Works When You Do It. Here, we're going to talk about an example of how to apply the ideas that we covered in Much Ado About Something. We're going to do this with a story about Jen and Jay. Jen is a general manager and marketer at a software company, and Jay is a freelancer who is a designer, but he taught himself programming. They have an idea about an application for families. There's a few things in the space, but nothing's emerged as really dominant yet, and they think they're the ones to do that. First, we'll talk about ideation. Jen and Jay are both parents. And that's how they originally got the idea. Before they go out and do anything else, they want to spend some quality time with these users and really learn about them. So Jen wants to get out of her element in doing this. She's been meaning to see a couple cousins who are in full mom mode up in Sacramento and down in San Diego. She wants to get out of her element and spend some time with these people. She's not there to sit people down and ask them a long list of questions. She's there to observe, learn about these folks, see what they do, how they go to soccer games, how they organize chores, all these family activities. And she wants to see what technology they use. Do they use Facebook? Do they use specialty apps? And she has a series of questions she wants to ask most of the time, but she's got that organized on Evernote on her smartphone so she can just take notes very discreetly and in a low-key way. She comes back with pages of notes, photographs, video, and she compiles all this into user stories, which we discussed have three components: a persona, something the user wants to do, and an objective, a reason why they're actually doing that stuff. So a few examples here. If we look at the second one, as a parent, I want to post a roster of chores so that I can link it to handing out the kids' allowances. The parent is the persona, the post a roster is the do something, and the handing out of the kids' allowances is the objective, the benefit. Once they have a chance to sit down and really digest all this, they come to a couple conclusions. First, the families really didn't have, by and large, an expressed interest in organizational tools per se. Organization, though, is a big problem. Getting the kids to the soccer game, organizing the shopping list, this is a real thing that they want to solve. So what this tells them is that it just can't be pitched as an organizational tool. It doesn't mean they shouldn't go after this. There are plenty of great products where, if you went out and asked people, they would have said, no, I don't see why I need that. The Walkman, we didn't know our social lives were broken and we had to spend hours a week online until we had Facebook. So that doesn't mean don't do it. It just means maybe don't describe it the way that you thought. The power users, the people that actually do use technology, they're relatively happy with the tools they have. The good news is that this community does self-reference a lot. People don't go to college to be moms or dads, so these people are learning as they go. They help each other to be better parents. And this is great because this means that Jen and Jay have a ready set of pivotal parents, power users that they can go take the proposition to, take prototypes to, and see if they're barking up the right tree. This allows them to get to an answer faster, which is part of the whole point of the kind of approaches that we've been discussing here. The last thing which was interesting is that the families really have a desire to be offline more, not online more, and they grapple with creating quality time together. So what Jen and Jay settle on is it's about slow time, or quality time. This is what they're going to focus on with the users. They're going to create an app called Pheasant. Pheasants have great maternal instincts. The app will have a website, a web component that you log into it with. You can also interact with it through a Facebook app, a mobile app, and the system will send out emails to users as desired. Let's talk about drafting stories. One thing that you'll find when you sit down to actually compile stories is you have a lot of stuff. And there is a way to organize those. This idea of an epic story which encapsulates multiple stories under it. And this is a way to use stories but still be very organized. You also find you have a lot of additional detail that you want to add to the stories. The best way to write that is as a test case against the particular story. Let's look at an example from earlier, which is in fact an epic story. As a parent, I want to post a roster of chores so that I can link it to handing out the kids' allowances. A sub-story there would be, as a parent, I want to create a list of chores so that I can divvy them out to my kids. And a test case would be, make sure there are a preset list of chores on the app Pheasant to choose from. Another one would be, make sure that as the user types in a chore, that the application suggests a series of these preset chores through autocomplete as the user types. Another test case would be make sure that the user can assign an allowance value to the chore. Another test case would be make sure it's possible to schedule the frequency of the chores by relative, like weekly, daily, or absolute, a set of dates type frequencies. And another story would be as a parent, I want to list my kids so that I can assign chores to them. Create a list of kids. You should make sure it's possible to allocate the chores as the kids are created. That makes it a little more compact and easier to set all this up. And you should make sure it's possible to set a target allowance for each kid. This isn't necessarily a complete set of stories, even under this one particular epic story, but this is an example of how epic stories relate to test cases. Now we're on to planning. How are Jen and Jay actually going to pull this off? First, they list all their assumptions. First one, families have a substantial desire to organize quality time, or slow time as they're calling it. This needs to be proven. Easy ways that they can initially prove out the assumption are to run online ads using Google AdWords, Facebook ads, with various versions of this proposition. Users click through, and then secondly, Jen and Jay are going to see whether on the landing pages that these users arrive at, do they click around and look for more information? Do they sign up on a sign up list to find more about this? That tells them a lot about the level of general pre-existing interest in the proposition. Secondly, families are on Facebook. This is not a proposition that needs to be proven. It's important, but it can be generally accepted. There's data out there. People will accept this. Same thing with the proposition that family members regularly use mobile apps. Families will find the pheasant solution credible. This definitely needs to be proven. Jen and Jay can test these signups that we mentioned previously against a more detailed version of the proposition and see which ones resonate. They can put together some informational content to send out to these users and see how that takes, and they can do their beta tests. But it turns out the more Jen and Jay grapple with this issue of whether they're really experts on this idea of creating quality time for families, the more they wonder whether they don't need to look at a different way of maybe doing this.